Hey everybody, Josh here, Lemon Blossom Farms. Today I'm talking about utility trailers. Utility trailers are insanely versatile things to have out on your homestead. They work really good for hauling stuff around, moving things, loading up stuff, big purchases, and for us, a lot of what we use them for is making dump runs and loading up with soil and stuff like that. This right here, I actually borrowed from my parents. But it is past due for some maintenance. Now, if you have a utility trailer, they can come in all different shapes and sizes and configurations. This one is like about 4 foot by 8 foot-ish. It's a wood bed using 2x8s, 2x10s. It's got raised channels on the side, angle iron. And then it's got, as you can see behind me, the expanded metal wire grating. This one's done really good. Most of your utility trailers are really solid. You can get them with formed metal, essentially just sheets of flat metal that have been bent up around. They can come with diamond decking on them. They can come small little pull behinds, or they can get really as large as you want. You can get them with dump beds, all kind of stuff. Starts changing their configuration, but utility trailers come in all different shapes and sizes. Essentially, what they are, though, is a platform, flat or bed style with raised edges, and then they have usually some kind of backing on them, either like a loading ramp or gate, or some of them just open up, not for loading, but more for like just hauling stuff. And then you'll have your wheels right on axles. Now you may have single axle, you may have tandem axle, which is 2 axles, you may have a triple axle for really big ones, so on and so forth. But they're all idler style, which means that the wheels just spin. There is no driving force behind them. And then your larger ones usually will have a brake on them. And that's configured through the receiver on your vehicle that you plug into, 4-pin, or the round 7-pin, I think. I know, I should know this, but off the top of my head, I'm forgetting. But for today, what we're working on with this is a little bit of past due maintenance. And so this is the actual axle here out of this. And the reason we're swapping this out is because this part here. Now what happened was as explained earlier, these are idler, which means they just spin, and they spin on a bearing. Now that bearing goes out because there's lack of grease in there. It rusts, it seizes, and then that wheel is no longer allowed to spin on the bearing, so it'll start spinning somewhere. And in this case, the inner race of the bearing, the inside, because there's 2 parts of a bearing, the inner race of the bearing started riding along the axle here and actually completely wore. As you can see right there, completely wore that part of the axle out. So what we're doing today is I've actually pulled this axle off because this axle is not any good anymore. And I've installed a new one down here. Well, I've got it set in place. We're going to dive into it in a second. And so as we install this, I'm going to hit up some key points for you for trailer maintenance so that you do not succumb to the same thing. Now this one's been around a long time. The wood on the bed's still good, but probably could use some replacing. And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about axle and lighting and stuff like that too as well. But let's dive into this axle replacement. All right, so we're down here in the wheel well of the utility trailer. Now I've already pulled the old axle out. I have the new axle set in place. We're looking at configurations. Utility trailers usually have some kind of mount for it. This one uses some leaf springs. The leaf springs will mount on the trailer using what's called shackles. And then you have a mount in the front. This one has the shackle on the back. And then the leaf springs kind of give it some cushion. They really only become effective when you have weight being applied to them. So if they're empty, your trailer's going to bounce around. And then you notice once you load your trailer with some weight, a few hundred pounds, maybe a couple thousand pounds for bigger ones, you notice the trailer actually starts riding smoother. And that's because this leaf spring actually gets to work. So we pulled the old one out, old axle sitting over here, new axle sitting in place. So this is, like I said before, this is just an idler. It's going to spin freely. And this has no brake. This is a small utility trailer. Larger ones will have a brake setup on there. Campers, camper trailers and stuff like that will have a similar setup too. This one has the wheel studs already on it. So if you notice here, this actually has a cap cover right there. What that cap cover does is cover a zerk fitting, which is where you can apply grease. That grease goes into the axle to prevent failures like this. Now, when you're pumping grease into there, for us, for me using this trailer, it only gets used a few times a year, not a lot. So I'll go in and maybe put one pump every like 6 months in there just to give it a little bit of grease. You don't want it overflowing with grease. That's not good for it, but you don't want it bone dry either. So one little squirt of grease in there occasionally is all you're going to need. Now we're going to mount C-channel. We're going to mount the U-bolts over the axle with the retainer plate. Now I have old bolts here. These have been on for a long time. They're kind of rusted, so I've acquired new U-bolts. And then we're just going to reuse this tie plate here. But essentially what's going to happen is we're going to bolt over the axle on each side. With these, they're going to slide right in just like that. And your axle sits right there. And then the bolts come in from the bottom. And that's what holds, put the nuts on the bottom. That's what holds your axle to your trailer. So one thing to make sure is, this is one reason why you want to make sure your trailer is loaded correctly, because this is what bears the entire weight of the trailer. This on one side, and then you have another set of this on the other side. So when you're shopping for trailers, make sure your trailer is rated for the appropriate weight. So over here on this side, I've already got the U-bolts in place. Now, one thing to pay attention to is your axle will actually have a slight dent in there on it. And that's essentially where your leaf springs are bolted together. So you want to make sure your axle, when you mount on this square here, is lined up over that. And on the bottom, we have a plate too, where the bolt's going to come through, and the hole on your plate needs to be lined up with that. So those are all lined up. We're going to go ahead and tighten down. one thing to remember when you're shopping for axles is there's two things you want to look at, and that is mounting. Remember holes we were talking about? Make sure those stay lined up. And also surface to surface, outside hub face to outside hub face is what you'll hear. Now, hub face here is what the wheel rod's on. This side's good, but you can hear that that it sounds a little gnarly. So yeah, this one was going out soon as well. But outside hub face, the outside hub face is a critical measurement, and also the capacity of your axle too. Now with ours, this trailer's good for about 3,000 pounds because of the 3,000 pound axle in there, and also for the configuration of the trailer. When you want to shop for an axle, it's not a bad thing to go slightly over, but aim for about the same rating as what you have. Always favor more than less, so make sure that you don't have any issues. So this was around a 3,000 pound trailer. I went with the 3,600 pound axle, and that way I don't have any issues out of this. We're gonna get the lug nuts put on, this finish and put on this side, the other side, give them a little torque, take the jack stands out, we'll be ready to roll. All right, so this trailer is back and ready for the road. Now, review over a couple things. One tip, you got to take these apart. A lot of times bolts are rusted. Get yourself some kind of penetrating liquid. I like using Cruel. That's a really good penetrant for rusting seized up bolts, but tons of stuff out there. A lot of people use WD-40, similar product, but any kind of penetrating oil can help you break those seized bolts loose. Another thing is making sure your axle is not only the right size width-wise as what you're taking out, but it's also rated for the same capacity for what you're taking out. Putting this back in, make sure you have your axle with those mounting bars facing down so they're sitting on your leaf springs, and in those grooves where your leaf springs have a bolt in them, make sure that's sitting on top of there. Wrapping up, putting your wheels back on, make sure you tighten in a star pattern, and then torque to whatever they're supposed to be at. I'm going to drive this around, make a few dump hauls with it, and then I'm going to recheck the torque on them after I put a few miles back on the trailer to make sure they're good. At that point, I'll also probably put in just a single pump of grease into those fittings on the end. They're still nice, easy to get to. I'll pop that cover off, one squirt with the grease pump right in there, put the dust cap back on. Those bearings are going to last us a long time. Highly recommend getting outsole like that so you don't have to take your bearings off, repack them and all that. Any questions, please feel free to ask. I am more than happy to help and answer anything I can related to this. And we're going to dive more into utility trailers later on as far as lighting, wiring, and configuration for them. We'll also talk about different sizes and those as well. If you are not subscribed, please make sure you do. Go down, hit that subscribe button. If you got something out of this video, if you learned anything, really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. Let me know how your project's going, what you're about to tackle next. Other than that, we're going to be moving on to summer garden. We're still ramping up for it. As you can see, I'm sweating here because the humidity is through the roof because Mother Nature was so nice and rained for about 30 seconds earlier. Kind of jacking that humidity back up for us. But we are diving full-fledged into summer garden now. But we're going to be talking about some stuff around here on the homestead. Utility trailer is going to be the first one. Happy gardening, everybody.